Okay, so everybody that hasn't had a chance to speak yet, that means as somebody that hasn't done a presentation, could you please introduce yourself? So maybe we'll start. We'll start with Fred. Go ahead, please.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Peter. So my name is Fred Yentz. I'm the president and CEO of ILS Technology. We're a telet company. To give you a little background on what that means, we're an industrial IoT platform provider. So we offer industrial IoT connectivity and services through basically a PaaS or SaaS model. Our parent company, Telet, actually ships, as of last year, we were the world's largest distributor and maker of industrial IoT cellular modules. So we're shipping probably somewhere in the neighborhood of, I'd say, 20 million modules today. So think of those as 20 million cellularly connected assets. And all of those going out this year also have the device-wise APIs and client in it. So those are a huge reach into the industries, into transportation, into industrial, into a lot of different markets where connectivity is becoming a norm.
Thanks, Fred. Marianne?
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? My name is Marianne Steidinger. I work for Schneider Electric. I am the Director of Product Marketing for Advanced Apps. So you may have heard of the brands of Wonderware and Avantis. This is the third year that I've been on this panel, and thank you, Peter, for the invitation. And the reason that we've been participating is because we've been one of the very first industrial application companies to actually use the cloud in order to host some services as well as host some of our applications. So we've been on what I'll call the bleeding edge of offering industrial applications to the market. We see the IoT as kind of a natural progression of looking at both big data as well as the cloud as well as mobility in order to provide companies with the ability to better understand the operations of their companies and then add value easily and kind of homogeneously.
Thanks, Marianne. David, how about you?
Yes, I'm Dave Petrucci, and I'm Vice President of Engineering and Analytics for a company called Genpact. We are historically a GE spin-off company that does business process management for our customers. So we are very focused on the Internet of Things and delivering those solutions to our customers. But we view the stack of everything from M2M communications up and through, how do you manage the data up through the advanced analytics and prognostics. As a community type of event, there's a lot of people that have specialties in their different areas, and we kind of aggregate those and bring those to our customers where we actually operate a lot of their operations.
Thanks, David. Okay, Rick.
I'm Rick Dolezal from ABB, located out of Cleveland, Ohio. I'm our Vice President of Lifecycle Services, and we've got about 500 folks across the U.S. that repair, service, evolve, upgrade automation and control systems, our 800XA, as well as our Harmony and Symphony lines that we have. So my focus across the USA is changing the culture and making it more responsive in a friendly way to respond to people's problems and keep the communication going and keeping everybody in a very positive mind frame so that we can respond very quickly and how you'd like us to respond. So we do, as I said, upgrade parts, advanced services, optimization. So we are really pushing on the envelope of a lot of these things, and most of them are sticking.
Thanks, Rick. Okay, so we've got a lot of talent and experience on this panel, and I think we're hearing some things that we might not have heard 5 years ago, 3 years ago. We're talking about applications in the cloud, the industrial Internet of Things, amalgamating control centers in a single location, hundreds of plants, connecting devices over cellular communication. So really what I'd like to know, if anybody has any questions, what I'd actually like you to do is just please raise your hand, and somebody's going to bring a microphone over to you. Yeah.
Hi, Jim. This is for you. You mentioned demand-driven supply chain as a goal. You mentioned, I think, wanting to get consumption data probably from retailers. Can you sort of describe a little bit how that connects into smart manufacturing for you?
Yep. So demand-driven supply chain. On consumption, there's really two pieces. Consumption from the consumer, and then consumption in our factories. So let me talk about the consumption from the consumer. So we wanted to be able to integrate point-of-sale information into our supply network to be able to reduce the inaccuracy of forecasting demand. And so the concept here is that instead of forecasting demand, we will just make whatever is sold. And to try to actually convert our manufacturing processes to just-in-time instead of make-to-stock. And so we need to absolutely understand the consumer demand and then figure out how we're going to modify our manufacturing process to make exactly what's needed. On the flip side, within the manufacturing walls, the concept of consumption is that instead of backflushing from a bill of materials into your accounting system about what you actually used, actually use your plant floor information to do direct consumption against your financial inventory. And so we actually, in this project, we did both ends of this, is that we automated the factory to get actuals going into accounting, and then we direct connected in a test mode with Walmart. And we connected a distribution center in Walmart. So we didn't go all the way to the point of sale information. We went to the, our customer wasn't the consumer. Our customer was Walmart, who then distributed. So whatever went out of their warehouse, we just replenished.
Thanks, Jim. So I have a question, and you know, as the organizer of this session and this great video that seemed to be a little bit far-fetched, maybe perhaps. And I think about, well, what's going to be the use case in the plant. I had a couple of examples. So the question I have, and this is really an open question for anybody that would like to answer it. I don't want to single this one out, but the question is with all this hype of the Internet of Things or the industrial Internet of Things, what does the panel think? Are we going to have more connected devices? Are people going to be more connected to their plants? And why might that be? So this is really just an open question if anybody in the panel would like to take it.
I'll start.
Okay, go ahead, Marianne, please.
Yes.
And why?
Oh, yeah. If you look at industrial automation, for 20+ years, we've already been connecting the plant together. So starting with motor starters and relays and terminal blocks and PLCs. And then as we started to develop more and more applications of not only getting data, but trying to put context and intelligence around that data. We started with human-machine interface software. And so it's been a natural progression over the past 20, 30 years. So for me, at least, the Internet of Things is not new, but what's new is the fact that it's becoming more ubiquitous. And because there's different delivery mechanisms, we now have other things to think about. So cybersecurity is on the forefront of everyone's mind, of being able to ensure that not only are you collecting the data, but that it stays within the confines of the organization, that you don't have breaches and you don't have competitors getting into that information or hackers that are doing something malicious to it. So absolutely, we see that there are more and more advances. The other folks on this panel are helping us to provide the technology that continues to connect the organizations, both internally as well as to their supply partners, as well as to their vendors.
Any other comments to that question?
Yeah, I would, to piggyback what Marianne said, I think that there's no secrets here. We all know what we need to do with regard to some things that we want to implement. The issue is pushing these through our companies that have these red tape things, people with negativity, people saying no, pushing these through our organization. Things that we might have heard some things we like to do today, but can I do that at my company? I would contend there's kind of two people that are out there, two types of people. Those that really recharge you, and you know who they are, you spend time with them, and then those who suck the lifeblood out of you. You want to, I believe that if you have enough of those people, like the kid on the video, I mean, boy, I'd have that kid on my team. If you put enough of those people together, they will come up with the good ideas. They will push through the barriers. You don't let the negativity in, and you push through, and you can make things happen this way. So we've got some good ideas, but there's a lot of things that are just about the people that you put on this team. We had a team recently where we wanted to do some new web design, and we said 6 weeks. We took some neat people that were very positive thinking, very forward thinking, and we got it done in 6 weeks, and we were pretty darn proud of what we came up with. So sometimes we have to live within our organizations, but if you can pick your favorites in the organization, you can get more done than if you add some people that are impeding the process.
Just want to add in, first quick question, how many people work in organizations that are being asked to do more with less people? How many people are doing more activities and have a larger span of control than you've ever had in your life? You take a look at what we're doing in the factory floor, what we're doing with operators. We're taking operators and making them operator mechanics or operator technicians. We're asking them to extend themselves. You know, even when I travel, right, I'm sitting here on my iPhone filling out my expense account. You're doing multiple things all the time. We have to figure out how to be more connected. We have to do this because our challenge, our business challenge is constantly doing more with less. And these approaches, this ability to have your, make decisions about your factory, to be connected with your factory 24/7 is the new way to do work. I mean, in the old days, right, you went home and then you worked on home things. What do you do today? You go home and you work on work things. You're connected 24 hours a day. That's happening in our factories as well, and it has to.
Any other questions from the audience? Okay, yeah, good. We've got a few.
Playing off what Rick had to say, Frank, this question's for you. How difficult was it to break down those barriers between IT and OT, and where are you today?
There was probably some reluctance at first, and mostly because I think for the years previous, you know, there were groups that operated in their own circles, and frankly, we avoided it. You know, as a team, you know, we could handle what we were tasked to do, and didn't need a lot of help, or thought we didn't need a lot of help. And it wasn't until again we formed this team and we find out how invaluable the services are that they're providing for us, and then you wonder how you did without it. And so I think it was really out of necessity, because when if I flash back maybe to around 2000 or so, or 2001, we're sitting here taking, again, controls engineers, process controls engineers offline to tackle reloading consoles, and they weren't good at it. And so it took multiple days of something that should have taken multiple hours. So I think that mother of necessity kind of promotes invention, and pulling us together at that point in time. You know, once we had it, we can't do without it.
Can I add a little bit of context around that age-old problem of OT and IT, you know, getting together and solving problems? It's rare that they actually cooperate and collaborate. So I think the other thing that we have done, and we've looked through the optics of two different constituents, and now there's the third, fourth, and fifth constituent, the third-party vendors, the other folks that are connected into the world. I think it's very, very important that when people are selecting tools and platforms and ways to do this, that you don't alienate a party. So we have, for example, you know, I think it's a good practice that when you give someone a tool to implement things like IoT, that the OT people can use their end of the tool that's very comfortable to them, and it allows them to maintain a level of isolation and security and feeling that they're, not feeling, the fact that they truly still are in control over things that are happening on their plant floor. And then you need to make sure that you're giving, you know, the IT people or the third parties or people running analytics another kind of optic into the platform where they're comfortable. And there needs to be rules and roles and responsibilities built into these systems where they can't stomp on each other. Because it's still a sandbox, they're still going to throw sand at each other every now and then. But if there's rules defined in the solutions that your companies choose to pick to implement these things, allow for those participants or those actors to engage and protect their turf, not in a way that is protectionism where you don't let the other guy in, but you let the other people in to get the information they need safely and securely, and there's controls wrapped around it, then I think that's a great way to break down those barriers.
Other questions?
This question's for Frank and Jim as well, but you mentioned hundreds of plants coming into an operations center with few operators. And I guess if you could share a little bit about how you put context around all this data coming in so that you're not inundating the operators in the plant. And then Jim, you talked about all these devices and lots of data and dashboards. So how do you decide what to put on a dashboard and how to build those dashboards?
Who will go first? Certainly, as you mentioned, when you're connecting to hundreds of plants at the same time, there's a flood of data, and it can be overwhelming. And I'll take just alarm management for a second. It might be a good example. Is when we first started bringing the plants in, individual plants were accustomed to what alarms were on their banners, knew which ones were important and which ones were not important, and which ones to ignore. But when you bring hundreds of plants into a facility at the same time, and you have a few operators you're sharing across a lot of those plants, they were overwhelmed, and frankly refused to accept the plant unless we implemented alarm management. And then everything had the same look and feel at the same time. But alarm management was key, key to those plants coming in. I'll give you one example. We had a plant that came in and it had a couple hundred alarms. And the remote operating center, as soon as they got it, they would acknowledge the alarms. And the plant was upset because now all those alarms are coming back in again. They were used to them not being acknowledged. And so we had to take that plant back out of the remote operating center, apply alarm management, clean it up, and then bring it back in. So the data they're looking at, the subset of data now is meaningful and makes sense. And you can make the same analogy against anything else in that plant. You can't be overwhelmed with data. You have to be more of a sniper rather than a shotgun.
And then in regards to trying to display that information, I don't have an answer for that. Mm-hmm. We use dashboards a lot. We use that, and we try to have commonality across the globe. But getting people to agree that this is the way I should look at things, and this is what's important, and this is how to present it, is really difficult. So we can win on KPI kind of information and real high level supply chain, plant performance, that kind of stuff. But when you get into the really asset management side of things and are getting a layer lower, everyone's got an opinion about how they should look at things, and we have not figured out how to gain 100% alignment in doing that. We struggle. We'll build the dashboards, and then someone will debate about it for a while. So.
Yeah, but to that point, what I've seen is that if you're building it at the lower level, operational level, everyone has a point of view, right? But if you tie those back up to kind of more the corporate metrics of what you're really trying to accomplish, what's the business outcome you're trying to accomplish, then it cleans up a lot of that noise, and you can get more to the point of what's really going to add value to the organization.
And then one last thing is a lot of times they're roles-based dashboards. So the idea is that you're basically creating or presenting those KPIs that are important to that one particular function. So if it's a quality person, that dashboard changes to show the quality KPIs like throughput or yields or rejects. So it's a matter of how you're going to be configuring and displaying the software.
Okay, thanks. Other questions?
Thanks. A question, I guess, both to the clients and also to the service providers on the panel. How did you think about ROI for the projects? Is there a rule of thumb out there? What's being pitched on some of these projects?
Good question.
Well, for us, a lot of times when we go to a customer and they're looking for a project and we're asking them, well, what are you trying to solve? So what are the issues? And so I'll look at enterprise asset management, for example, and they may be looking at spares management, inventory management, response time. And so they can actually calculate, well, because we've been able to use materials when we need them versus having them in stores, be able to be more proactive in the maintenance. So it's reducing the amount of downtime, reducing the amount of non-productivity, customers can actually, and we can help them, of course, calculate that ROI. And it can be in the millions of dollars, depending upon, of course, the industry and the applications that we're providing.
We look at it on two fronts, and depending on what type of organization you are, a lot of product companies are becoming service companies or solutions companies, right? And so there's the cost side of ROI, but there's also the revenue side of ROI. And so, we look at it in where we, work with some companies that manage large, service contracts. We look at it as kind of a leakage from maybe the internal manufacturing process or internal supply chain process and identify those leakages. But we also really try to help customers look at the revenue upside and creating new revenue streams for them by being able to understand better how their assets operate, how their assets are being manufactured, and being able to sell that as a service out to their customers as well. So I think you have to look at both sides, the revenue and the cost side, into that discussion.
Yeah.
So let me give you a different perspective. As someone that has to get the money to do those projects, the first thing is that we don't believe any of the information you just told us. And it clearly is necessary to do the analysis, but is not sufficient to get the project funded. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it's me putting my butt on the line and having personal credibility with my executives that allows the project to get approved. Because if I stand behind it and I have credibility in my organization, then the numbers that are presented will be trusted. If it's a vendor analysis and it's not backed by a leader internally, it will not be trusted, even if the numbers are right. It just won't have that credibility and that trust factor. So in my organization, we're a relationship-based organization. And so it's about me committing my personal commitment to that project, regardless of what the numbers are. So when we did this demand-driven supply chain, spent $20 million with no ROI. Why? Because we said it's the right thing to do. And we'll pilot it, and we'll prove it, and we'll show that this drives value. Why did it get approved? Because a number of us put our butts on the line to commit to actually do this. Now, the second and third and the fourth projects are going to use this first project as the benchmark and generate the ROI and do all the heavy lifting that you have to do to get big projects approved. But to go that first step, it's about leadership commitment and putting a few chips on the table that you might want to bet on in the organization.
So we need a lot more Jim Wetzel's out there who put the butts on the line.
Jim, I appreciated you looked the other way when you said you don't believe any of the numbers. Thank you for that.
So I like to dumb it down, really simple. And when you're getting ready to put your butt on the line, right, which I totally agree, I look at three factors, and I encourage our customers to look at three factors. Make money. How are you going to make money? How are you going to save money? How are you going to stay out of jail? Right? And staying out of jail is tongue-in-cheek. It might be compliance-oriented, or it may be more serious, right? And it's how do you keep your butt out of harm's way when you put it on the line? So looking at it through some of the simplest business metrics is key, and taking a peek at what your competitors are doing. I love the keynote. He says, if you're not doing it now, you're late. So there's reference cases and examples of people doing this to your left and to your right. And if you're the guy that they're looking at and say, man, I've never seen you here, you might think that I better catch up. So some of it is fear, uncertainty, and doubt as well.
Okay, I think we've got another question over here. Can we take another one?
Yes, to achieve the ROI in spite of the kind of cybersecurity risks and that IT-OT gap, what do you see the role of training and education on the industrial networking topic? Is that do you have programs? Is that part of your transition plan as you move to the Internet of Things? Do you any comments?
Well, for us, it's huge. It's what Frank said about your organization and what your talent is and who knows what. as we move into this space, right, the education and training is paramount to make sure it happens. And you know, one of the things, and I don't know if our organization model is different than others, but we do most of our work internally. So we don't outsource a whole lot of our technology work. We insource it, and that means that our folks need to be able to be moving with the times and keeping up.
You know, I'll tell you where training helps is I've been in a number of IT meetings where we had an idea with regard to implementing some remote connectivity. You can just tell the IT person in the room. They're sitting there like this. It's all closed. There is no way you're going to do any of this. And they're just there to attend the meeting. And education has helped with regard to opening people up and saying, this is what we'd like to do. Let's try a pilot. Let's educate you as to here are the safeguards that are in place. So a lot of people come in with a lot of biases and don't want to get hurt. So the education has helped open people up a little bit. And frankly, if we piggyback in Jim's comment, if you want to make any change, you have to take a risk. So education has helped educating people with regard to how to take a risk.
One of the things we heard, and I really appreciated what Peter Holicki said. He talked about making the elephant dance, and Jim and Frank, like clearly you've done some pretty good things. You're both leaders. You're taking applications to the cloud and bringing an enterprise level to data that wasn't available before. Frank, you're bringing assets to a common place. So I'd like to start with Frank and Jim. If you have any advice for people that are embarking on such a journey, what would you give to them? How do they get started in such a plan?
It starts with just listening, you know, and it's pretty interesting. I sit on a customer advisory board, and there's a number of other customers or other plant managers and influential people in their companies on the board. And when you listen to the opinions and the directions they have, it's night and day. And no one's right or no one's wrong, but you know, some will embark and embrace connectivity, and others will promote air gap, you know, and isolation. And so I think a lot of it just starts with conversation.
I would say fail early and small. You know, as you think about trying to get your elephant to dance, if you fail at the end, you know, just before you're learning how to dance, that failure could be pretty spectacular. So, you know, when we do software development and things like that, we follow agile methods where we're doing burst kinds of things. And so as you can deploy and get little wins or failures, learn along the way and get those bite-sized pieces done instead of trying to wrap it up into a big elephant and get it done. Because if you try to design it from the beginning with that perspective, you'll fail because things change along the way. And then technology changes along the way, and people's skills change along the way. So fail early, make sure it's small, get it to bite-sized pieces, and move on.
Okay, thanks. I think we got a question back here. Oh, sorry, right over here, please.
Hi.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, just a quick question. We've been talking a lot about the IT-OT cultural divide and a lot about ROI. So what we're seeing is that the P&L is transferring to the OT side and IT being kind of a service. But I'm hearing different things there. So I just wanted to get maybe some context around how are you funding the IT portion? Is it a line item on your P&L, or is it something different?
For us, it's a line item on our P&L. The IT side, zero-based budgeting, so they'll back charge us all of the costs that we incur from the traditional IT perspective. And of course, then every annual year, it's an argument about did we get any value from that line item. But
and for us, it's much the same. You know, it's a line item they charge. You know, I work for operations, so there's a portion that gets charged into operations. There's also portions that get charged into just infrastructure, G&A.
Okay.
One quick follow-up. So if that's the case, then if an IT person is providing the service, why is there still is there just arrogance around it, or is there still a reluctance or a misunderstanding?
well, I put it this way: we have a built-in friction. And think of it this way: we're trying to do more with less. Right? We're not adding staff and all this other kind of stuff, so you got more with less. At the same time, in a manufacturing perspective, what does winning look like? Winning looks like lots of applications that do all sorts of value creative things that are solving problems all over the place, exchanging data over a very robust network. That's what we think winning looks like. What does the IT guy look at it and go, well, let's see, I just put up a multi-gigabit fiber network, and the first thing you want to do is what? You want to use it? I want to control bandwidth so I have less issues to deal with. Oh, wait a minute, you don't want to just have one application in the cloud? You want to put 1,000 applications in the cloud? Where did my job get easier? If there's not more of me, then you're adding stuff to their plate, and the more stuff you create, the more stuff you have to maintain. So a huge part of IT is about maintenance. And so until the tool sets continue to get better, they're going to continue to sit there like this in the room saying, I don't know how you expect me to bounce that server. I don't know how you expect me to increase that network bandwidth because there's not enough me to go around. And the cool thing I think about companies like yours, as Cisco is doing things, the life is getting easier for these folks. They can do this. When I mentioned about span of control, the span that these folks can reach, the number of things that they can do is getting much better. If it didn't, this stuff would stop because we can't add people to do all these things.
Thanks. One more question back here.
Yeah, hi, Manoj Matthew, Cognizant. Sort of the Facebook question vis-a-vis the old software on a PC question, right? When you've invested so much into the Internet of Things architecture and you're actually collecting data from sensors and plants all over, it sort of runs in the face of the classical paradigm of delivering enterprise software and services, which is we'll have 4 releases a year, you can expect a release then, and we'll get trained. And Jim, I think you alluded to this, that the number of requests you're going to have for can I do this, can I do that, go up. So how does that change from your organization's readiness to essentially now respond to individual requests for information of the Internet of Things? I mean, if you had 10 plant general managers and everybody said they wanted their own view of the plant, and 3 times a week they came back and said, could I see this, could I see that? It really upsets the whole let's get your requirements and let's build software paradigm. So how do you react to that?
For us, for the first time in many, many years, we're being trained to say no. We can't handle the confusion. And so we are working with our supply chain leaders to embrace the concept of standards. If you look at the manufacturing world, we're not, we can't have 10 different views of the same issue. We got to get aligned to one because we don't have the bandwidth to do it 10 different times. From a tool perspective, if the tools got easy enough that the end user could customize it to their own way and not need help, that'd be okay. But in today's world, a lot of the tools need someone else to help them, and you can't keep customizing everything for everybody. So we're getting better at saying no.
There was a follow-on to that. While a student in the market, if you go back to the Internet today, your Facebook page doesn't look like the demo sitting next to you. So is that no a little few time? Maybe it lasts for 6 months, and where does the break after whatever you have to essentially give business users what they want?
Well, it starts with when business users can explain the value of what they want. We get a lot of requests for a lot of things that people want that add absolutely no value. And that in vendors, when they come to General Mills, that's a huge part that is always difficult. What's the value creation of this thing that somebody wants? It gets back to the ROI discussion. Yeah, you may want it, but want doesn't drive a business. You have to be able to figure out what the value is. And so we're using that as our equation to say yes or no to these things. Because people can get all hung up about, the new squirrel that just ran across there, the flashlight, and boom, they're on it, and you go, wait a minute, if I worked on that, it really wouldn't matter. It wouldn't drive anything in the company. In other cases, it's huge. So it's kind of a it depends answer.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's two
worlds and two cultures clashing. So if you think of the internet speed of a Facebook or that kind of a company, they're doing multiple releases maybe a day into the cloud, and everybody can mass customize their page, right? So that's one way of thinking. In the manufacturing domain, which pretty much everybody in this room probably has spent a lot of time or grown up there, it's very much a planned waterfall approach kind of model. So it's a very long, drawn out PLM, we can't afford to make a mistake kind of a model. So I think you've got to have tools that ultimately can start to adjust to those radical, daily needs where I can maybe, move a bit over here and see a different line wiggle because it makes my job easier, but you can't go through, the 6-month planning process to make that happen. So if the tool's easy enough for mass customization, I don't call Facebook and have them change something. The tool's there, you make the change. So we've got to get these worlds aligned so that the speed and the velocity that people expect on their iPhone can someday be realized in the way they work. And that's just a matter of time. I really do.
But I don't, because it's a manufacturing world, I would not expect my operator to go onto my HMI and change my control screen, as an example, because they decided they like the object being over to the left side versus the right side.
Totally agree. And Mary Ann said it great. She goes, the world's defined up by roles and users and different actors, and you can customize to that, but it's not an individual thing. It's basically by the needs of the groups or the roles. I think that's how you maintain some control.
It's controlled change.
Exactly.
It really is. So you have to look at kind of the domain, and again, what is it that you're trying to accomplish? And if it's, as I said, just a different view of the same type of data, and it's not impacting anything, and you've got tools that allow you to do it. So it's all a matter of the philosophy of how much do you want people to change, and how fast are you willing to change?
I guess to piggyback on that, we had to tackle part of those problems, again, bringing all the plants into a central location. And plants were custom over the years of having graphics and things located where they were used to having them located. And it put a high demand on standardization because you couldn't bring in dozens and hundreds of facilities and expect a single operator or number of operators to be familiar with everything is all the time. So it put a demand on and had us push back on the plant and says, now this is kind of the graphic package we agreed on. This is where things are going to be located. This is how we're going to do it, and had to implement that. And they got used to it. But we had to take away some of that flexibility they were used to when you're aggregating them in a single location.
One more comment. We may look at all these tools and think, okay, why are we doing all this stuff? We've got all these tools out there. I would contend that a generation ago, our parents were very proactive. They went into work, they knew what they were going to do, they got started doing what they were going to do for that particular day. We go into work and we check our email. We're very reactive at this point. We've gone from proactive to very reactive. And I think we want to get back to proactive. That we're better when we're proactive. We make better decisions. We can plan what our decisions are. We're not just responding to things. So I think we really feel more comfortable being proactive. And the use of these tools is to get us to put in agents to respond to things for it. Once we realize, okay, I don't want to ever accept an email from this, I'll have it automatically thrown into my junk mail bin. We want to be proactive. So we're using these tools to try to get to be more proactive so we can be more strategic in some of the decisions that we're making.
And really, it's not even proactive, but it's predictive. So the idea behind IoT in the long run is, can you take the data and help you to make better decisions? So take more context into, you're not just taking a single data point, but you're taking data points from environmental systems and control systems and people, and things outside of the company, maybe the cost of energy, and then be able to predict what something is going to happen and stop it or improve it. And I think that's really the goal of this, is to take all of the information that's around us and make better sense of it. Not just make sense, but make better sense to make it better operations.
Okay, I think we're just about out of time. I hope you all enjoyed the session, and please join me in a round of applause for the panelists. Thank you.